Hey guys, how are you? So we're going to continue on, and I'm going to show you how to add another element to your mashups, your re-edits, and this starts to kind of flirt with the idea of a bootleg or remix, sort of, sort of how adding vocals, as we talked about in a previous video, does. So I'm going to go into my Carl Cox kicks, because who doesn't like Carl? And then actually what we'll do, let's drag it on, just so I don't lose it. And it's right there. We'll go into MIDI, actually we'll go into instruments, and we'll just drag in a simpler, and then we'll drag the kick into that. Had I been at my kicks and went into instruments and dragged a simpler in, I would have lost where this kick was in my sample library. So then I would have had to go and look it back up again. So it's just a time saver. That's why I did it that way. So now that we have the kick in our simpler, we can delete the actual audio track and move on to using it as MIDI. And probably, I guess this is as good a place as any, or the most common place. We'll go ahead and click and drag and Control-Shift-M to make a MIDI clip. We'll go ahead and make a right click 1/4. We'll turn on our sound. And I picked this kick because it's kind of a like an old school 909 dirty, distorted kind of kick. Pretty different than the style of kick I used in Bop. So it may not fit, but that's not really the point. The point is really for me to hyper show you this example so you really get it, and then that way when you go to do this yourself, you can kind of refine it better. But right now I'm just trying to really show you clear as day the example. So I hit B on my keyboard to turn my cursor into a pen tool. You can also use this switch up here. It's the same thing, same exact thing. I think we'll just stay on C3. I think that should work. If not, we'll move it. So I'm just going to click and drag across C. And if that's too thin for you, you can always go right over C3 or anywhere in this gray area. Your cursor turns into a magnifying glass, and if you click and drag to the right, it makes it much bigger, so that way it's a little bit easier for you to draw. Okay, I'm going to click B to get back to my cursor, so changing from pen to cursor. Let's just take a listen. Now I can hear a difference there. I'm hoping that you can as well. I'm going to shut it off and turn it on so you can hear the difference. Here's the original. And here's with the new kick. And now we're going to toggle. Not a huge difference, but it's different enough that you can hear that it's just a dirtier kick. And once again, like I said, the kick that I chose, what I'm doing here is subjective. You can pick any kick that you like. It's just so that you can kind of hear that grimy kick cutting through. One thing I am noticing here is that the master is clipping, which is a huge no-no, and you never want to turn down the master to correct that problem. We can do one of two things. We have our span on, which is cool. We can add a limiter if you want, but I would probably prefer to actually move these two tracks, since they're already mashed up together and kind of matched in volume. I don't know if it'll let me move them down. Oh, good, it is. Move them down by a couple dB. Now you can really hear that kick, and we're no longer clipping the master. Could we lower this kick down by a dB or two? Probably, so it's not so in your face. And what we can do is go into span, and let's just take a look at where everything is sitting without that new kick. Now let's take a look at where it sits with the kick. In fact, I'm a little bit concerned because of the setting I have, and let's try high res. And what we're looking for here, guys, is in the bass region. Let's see if we can see our new Carl Cox kick create a new hump on our spectrograph here. Let's see. So you could see there, guys, that it definitely does create a new hump. Right at about 50. And when I take that away, that 50 hump goes away. You can see that, and if that's hard to see, let me just solo it for you. Yeah. Yeah, so now that you know where to look, check it out right at around 50, which if you can see there's 40, there's 60, there's 50. If you just follow that up with your cursor, and you can see right here too, it'll tell you where you're at. Or I thought it did, actually. Oh, pardon me, right here, pardon me. Right there, guys, right there. So, yeah, right at about 49.50, take a look. Anyways, okay. So I know it seems like I harped on that for a minute, but it's really good, guys, to get used to looking at your spectrograph and get used to and get good at what I just basically did there. Because once you can start to read frequencies like that, you can really begin the process of improving your mix in a very nice way and get very good results with very minimal equipment. So, okay. With all that being said, now that we know where the kick is sitting and all of that, let's go ahead and do Control L to loop this. And what we're going to do is back up here on bop, we're going to add a compressor. We're going to expand it. We're going to sidechain it to our Carl Cox kick. Now, we're going to make this track basically do a basic dip or duck in volume every time this kick, this Carl Cox kick, hits. What we can do, though, is if we really wanted to, we could use the EQ to only dip out the low frequencies. So generally speaking, a compressor, when it's sidechaining, is making the volume of this track, the overall volume, dip or duck or lower. When you turn the EQ on, now you are telling the compressor to dip, duck, or lower only at specific frequencies that you have specified. So now the entire track does not lower, meaning the hi-hats, the vocals, the steel drums, all of that. It's just the bass region that lowers. And I think that can be quite helpful to really help tidy up this kind of thing. So let's do it without first. We'll bring the attack down because obviously the second that this kick sounds, we want this this track bop to dip down. We don't want any delay in that. We might start at 50, might take it up just a little louder, a little bit higher, maybe to like about 80 or 70, somewhere around there. And we're going to slowly lower the threshold to see where the effect takes place. Roughly about right there. So what I'm hearing, I don't know if your ears can hear this, and if not, it's okay. But what I'm hearing is that this kick, because of the nature of the kick, I believe, it's taking out some of the mid and high frequencies, and really what that equates to is it's taking out some of the energy of this track. So that's why I mentioned the EQ, because we can probably go back to about 100 on this. So turn the EQ on. And whatever kick you pick, whatever song you're messing with, it's always going to be a little different. So unfortunately, guys, you're just going to have to use your ears and try to mess with it. But now, I think with this on at 100 and it dipping only the low end, I think we should be okay. Let's find out. I hope I'm doing that right, because this curve here, I'm having a little bit of trouble because of the kick, really hearing what is truly dipping there. I just feel like my ears are telling me that I can hear that this is dipping the lows a lot more than this one is, which is good. So what I mean by that is when I have it switched to this, it's a low pass filter, meaning the lows will pass through, so it's taking out more of the high frequencies when this kick sounds, which is not good. We want a high pass filter so the highs can pass through, but when the kick sounds, it's taking out the lows of the original track, which will create a little bit of a better mix. And of course, when we make it less extreme and ease up on that threshold, it sounds a lot more natural and nicer. Essentially, guys, that's it right there. It's just about, if you wanted a different kind of kick, you know, we could even take this to an extreme, and we could, if you really wanted to, I mean, this is obviously just a ridiculous example just to kind of show you, but you could distort the kick. You know, this is if you wanted like a distorted kick over it, if you were making kind of a hard house, or maybe even experimenting with like a blurred lines, hard style kind of thing. Which it already is a dirty kick, but you can hear that when you throw some distortion on it, you know, and obviously that's a very different kind of kick than what was originally on it. So there you go, guys. That's just a way of me showing you the potential creativity of minimal options. You have a completely finished track here, and I'm adding a kick down here and using sidechaining, and more importantly EQ, specific sidechaining to duck the bass frequency so that this kick fits better. Now you could also, just to be safe, you might want to take an EQ and see where the bass line is of this track. Now I don't know about you guys, but I can already see it. Look around 100 here and look for the kind of funky bass line that I made here. And you can see I'm moving my mouse to bounce back and forth between the two. Just the changing notes of the bass line. Have a good day, babe. So, and also, I mean, you can use span as well. There's no, you know, it's all kind of the same and all very helpful to do. And all that is, guys, is just the bass line, just the notes of the bass line naturally changing. So, obviously, by nature, they're going to be at different frequencies on the frequency spectrum. Being now that we've targeted those bass notes, what we can do is just make sure that the kick itself is not stepping on those notes. So we'll solo the kick. Let's just make sure that where those notes were, the kick isn't stepping on it too much. We see a little... Where's that at? Looks like 150. If I look in the top left corner of span, right here, we've got something going on at 150 there. Let's see where our bass line is again. Yeah, it looks like, unfortunately, guys, we do have something going on in our baseline around 150. So we might then take an EQ8, and right around 150, maybe just put a little dip in right there. If my finger can... 150, there we go. Dip it down. Maybe tighten up on the Q because we don't want to take out a whole lot of the kick. We just want to take out the problem region there. And, you know, do it to taste. I'll do 5 dB. Might be a bit extreme. Let's see. Personally, I can hear the bass line, so I'm not too concerned about it. You know, if you wanted to get crazy, like in my advanced production course, I talk about different tools that you can buy that can dynamically take out the frequencies, which would obviously only serve you to create a much tighter mix than what we're doing with a static dip that just stays there constantly. But this is fine too. You know, keep in mind, guys, that we're not working with a full session and maximum versatility and options here. Maybe all the more reason than to use a dynamic EQ. But I think it's fine as is. Let's look on span. So what I'm seeing is there's a constant bump right around here, and that's the kick. And when the bass line comes in on these problem notes, it shoots way up to here. Take a look. Kick and then bass line. Watch. So hopefully you guys can see that. Just the difference in volume there and probably the dipping. You could try to cheat that as much as you want. You know, I mean, there's no harm in trying to cheat it as much as you want to get it as clean as you can. You might also try, you could make the cue a little bit wider. Something like that. But then it's really just more of the same, listening and seeing where those humps are and using your ears and seeing how the visual correlates with your auditory, your ears, how your eyes coordinate with your ears. That's it though, guys. That's it. That's a really cool way and an easy way, a little bit of a obsessive overthought on it, but still valuable way of adding a new kick to tracks. So I hope you guys enjoyed that and use it. Have fun with it. See what you can come up with. I'll see you guys in the next video.